Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Gameday Gameplay, the sports segment of Console Space. I'm your host, Sean Colangelo, and I'm joined by, as always, the man I envy the most in the wintertime, Todd from Florida. How's it going, man?
It's going good, Sean. How you doing?
Not too bad. We crept into December, but still hasn't really been too cold yet. You know how it is nowadays with our climate. We kind of have these little like inside out winters where like it doesn't get cold until like January or like February almost.
Yeah, well, we're getting a nice little cold front down here. In fact, we're potentially even getting an ice storm sometime this week. So,
Oh, really?
yep.
That's probably
Which,
a rarity in Florida, right?
oh, it's very rare. It'll be fun to watch everyone freak out about having to try to drive with that.
Yeah. um, well, let's get into it.
All right.
Let's go ahead and I don't think we've ever started with basketball, so let's start with the NBA. What's going on there?
All right. We'll start with basketball this week. Biggest news I could find coming out of this week is a pretty big potential injury for the league. Steph Curry is out 2 to 3 weeks with a sprained ankle. Obviously, Steph Curry has been an MVP candidate before. He's won the MVP before. He's a superstar player, and anytime he's out, the league suffers, and Golden State for sure suffers. Um, Golden State has the depth. I think they can survive it, especially for only 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, they still got Durant, Clay, you know, Green. They've got plenty of players there, but obviously they're a better team when Curry's in the lineup, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah. Keeping with injuries, Devin Booker for Phoenix is out 2 to 3 weeks with a groin injury, kind of around the same time frame. Um, Anthony Davis, the star big man for the Pelicans, is day to day with a groin injury. It was originally thought that would be more serious, and now it's looking like he's going to get out of a major one. Probably only miss about 2 or 3 games. That's good for New Orleans. They're fighting for every point they can get, so obviously they don't want to lose one of their stars. And then last bit of injury isn't actually player related, but Charlotte Hornets coach Steve Clifford is stepping away from coaching the team to deal with a health issue that he has not disclosed. So he's had heart problems in the past. They're saying it's not heart related this time, but if it's serious enough to make him step away from coaching, it's obviously pretty serious. So best of luck to him. Hope he gets healthy and back to coaching soon. So.
Yeah, for sure. That's not good.
Nah, never like to see that, but um, other news that's not injury related, not really much going on in terms of transactions or anything. Bradley Beal with Washington had a career game this week. Washington beat the Blazers, and he's dropped 51 points in their win. Um, Anytime you see a basketball player drop 50 in a game, that's pretty insane. So, uh, definitely a highlight of his career. One a night he'll look back to and remember for a good while to come here. And
Oh yeah.
outside of that, like I said, there's just not a lot going on move-wise or things like that. Looking at the standings where we're at right now in the East, the top four, Boston is still at the top of the East, 21-4. They're playing some great ball right now with Kyrie leading the way for them. LeBron and Cleveland have kind of worked their way back into the discussion for top team in the East as well. They're 17-7. They're second in the East. Toronto is 15-7. They're third, and Detroit is 14-9. They're fourth. Heading over to the West, Houston's still leading the West, 18-4. Golden State's right on their heels at 19-6. San Antonio is 16-8, and Denver is 13-10. So that's about the look of the top 8 in the league right now. But it's still early, a lot to change going forward.
Absolutely. That it for the NBA?
That's it, man.
All right. We usually end with hockey, but there's a lot of interesting things that happen in the NFL, so we'll save that for last for once. What's up with the NHL?
Let's talk about the NHL. That's one thing I want to let's have a discussion about. Our good friend Nikita Kucherov for Tampa Bay. He has hit his 40th point, and he is only 27 games into the season.
Wow.
That puts him on pace for a 121-point season.
That's
I
crazy.
kept saying all the way up when he was doing it that I don't think he was going to maintain the pace, but they're nearly 30 games into the season now, and he's still scoring at that pace. So what do you think? Does he have a chance of breaking the 120-point mark?
I definitely think at this point you got to at least say it's possible. But I mean, even so wait, what? We're a quarter in or third in the season?
We're getting closer to a third. We're
Close to a
over a
third.
quarter, but not quite a third. We're in between.
Yeah, I mean, just through sheer probability and chances alone, I mean, probably not. But I bet you he'll probably come close. I mean, I would say,
I don't think it's any secret he's going to break 100 points this season. I
yeah,
can't see, unless barring an injury, I don't think there's any way he doesn't. Um,
right.
Keep in mind, it's December hockey right now. December hockey is played a lot different than March hockey, so
Oh, for
you
sure.
know
Much
teams
more
are
wide
gonna
open.
yeah
Yeah.
teams are gonna narrow it down. They're gonna lock it down, and they're gonna be playing more competitive hockey toward the back end. And it's looking like Tampa probably won't have much to play for toward the end of the season too, so that might have something to do with it as well. But
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Tampa. I mean, I doubt it, but it'll be interesting to see if they fall into the capital syndrome, to where they're just so far ahead of everyone else, and the games become more meaningless, and they're not really in playoff mode when the time comes. We'll see.
there is a lot to say about the momentum going into the playoffs. We've seen far too many times a team that's ridden the whole season hot, but haven't had to really struggle that much at the end of the season, going into the playoffs cold and end up, losing early. So, um,
Yeah, I mean, you know, we know all too well, particularly in '09 and '16. That's exactly what the Penguins did. I mean, they weren't even super great regular season teams, and they just got hot at the right time and just couldn't lose. So
mhm,
that does
yep,
happen a lot, but we'll see.
you're absolutely right. Um, let's pop over to a little bit of a suspension news. Brendan Dillon, defenseman for the San Jose Shark, has been suspended for 1 game for slashing on Madison Bowie for Washington. I actually saw this play. I watched the video after they announced the suspension. I think it's a good call. It's a 4-1 game. San Jose is losing. It's late in the third. Dillon is bringing the puck into the zone, and Bowie, steps up and kind of gives him a little shove into the boards. It wasn't anything bad at all. I mean, he had the puck. It was just playing the guy. And as he comes bouncing back off the boards, he brings his stick down and two-handed slash right to Bowie's hand. So,
Mm.
um,
Um, Now I didn't see that one, but did you see the Hamannik one?
I did not. I did not actually see that one. What went on with that?
So they actually, they kind of screwed it up. I mean, so when it comes to the game of hockey, obviously it's extremely fast. It's amazing that the refs get most calls right, at all.
Mm-hmm.
But they screwed this particular one up. It was like right off. I don't know if it was the opening face-off of the first period or whatever, but right off the opening face-off of one of the periods, he hit this guy. They were playing the Flyers, and he hit this guy, and the way that he went through him, it looked like he made contact with his head, but when you watch the slow motion replay, he didn't hit his head at all. They actually
Mm-hmm.
ejected him from the game, um,
Gotcha.
on a hit that was completely clean, and it. So yeah, they got that one wrong. Um, I don't think he's going to face any discipline for it because he didn't really do anything. But unfortunately, obviously, yeah, he was ejected from that game. So I mean, I don't like Hamannik, so whatever. But this is probably the one time in his career he did do something wrong. But whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at the news today. I didn't see anything about him having a hearing or anything like that, so I'm assuming that he's not gonna get
Yeah.
any supplemental discipline from it. Sucks to get kicked out of a game for a hit that you should get kicked out from, but obviously it's best if you don't, if he's gonna avoid any further things out of that, then it is what it is. It happens.
Right.
Refs aren't perfect; they're human beings. They make mistakes. Just something we have to deal with in hockey, unless we want to take the human element out of it, and then that's not interesting at all. So.
Right.
Let's go on to some injury-related news here. Uh, some pretty devastating news mostly for Derek Dorsett. Derek Dorsett, who was a kind of a grinder, enforcer type guy for Vancouver for a long time. Never really been a big scorer, but was having a career year this year. Had like 9 points in his first 13 games or something like that.
Oh wow.
Something crazy. He unfortunately has had some serious neck injuries, and they are lingering. And his got aggravated earlier this season, and his doctors have recommended to him that he needs to step away from the game permanently. So he has retired after 10 seasons due to his neck injury. So um, best of luck to him going forward. I mean, I was never a big fan of his style of play. I don't like the enforcer type play really in the league anymore. But
Well,
you
that
never
and
want to see a guy get kicked out of the game that he loves to play early because something like that. It's always tough to watch. So
yeah, I mean, obviously that role is kind of mostly being phased out anyway. Um,
it is, and that's why I was kind of rooting for him this year, having him seeing his turn around as a scorer more than the grinder enforcer kind of guy in the fourth line. He was actually putting up really good points for
right.
Vancouver, but
Yes,
it's
unfortunate.
it's a shame to see a guy's career end like that. But he's got a lot of options he can go to. I'm sure Vancouver will find a place in the organization for him if he wants to get into coaching or something in the front office. So.
Hmm.
All right, we got a little bit of news goalie wise. Actually, some three pretty big pieces. First one, Las Vegas. Marc-Andre Fleury is back at practice. There's no news that if he's been cleared to play games yet, but he's taking shots in practice, so you got to think he's not far off if he isn't cleared already. Um, that's obviously huge for Vegas. They're already still winning games with Subban and Lagacé, but Subban and Lagacé can't compare to Fleury. There's no questioning that. So they're
Well,
only going to get stronger if he comes back.
I'll tell you now. I really hope Flower as well as Matt Murray are both healthy on February 6th because I will be at that game. So I'm hoping they're good to go and look forward to them going head to head.
Yep. Is that the one in Pittsburgh?
Yes.
That is. They're playing in Vegas sometime this month, I believe. Within the next 2 weeks, I
Dude,
think.
in like a week from tomorrow,
Yeah.
I believe.
hmm So
So
we're not sure if Murray will be back by that one.
he actually probably won't
Last
be, but
news.
we'll see.
Last news I heard on Murray is that they're still being evaluated. He's skating on his own, which is a good sign that it's not that serious, but he
Yeah.
still could probably miss another week or two. So
They don't need to rush him back anyway. I mean, I wouldn't,
not with the
but
way Jari's been playing for sure.
yeah, we'll see. But
Other goalie news: Roberto Luongo is looking like they're saying he's out for an extended period. They haven't given a certain time frame yet, but they're saying anywhere between 3 and 5 weeks at least with a lower body injury, which probably means groin if you're a goalie.
generally,
Uh,
yeah.
9 times out of 10, that's a groin injury. I didn't see the play he got injured on, so I can't say for sure, but just guessing from the position he plays. What's your opinion on Lou? Lou has always been one of those guys that I think is an extremely underrated goalie in the
Oh
league.
yeah, he's still pretty good for his age.
Oh yeah,
I don't think he has that long left. I feel like he's almost a more poised version of Lundqvist, you know. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've
Uh,
always liked him.
he got into the record books. I think he became. I don't know if he was the only or one of the only few, but he won 200 his 200 game with Florida, which means he's one of the few goalies that's won 200 games with two different franchises, with Florida and Vancouver.
Oh, that's pretty
So
cool.
I mean, that's pretty insane.
Yeah,
He's had a pretty long tenure career, and he's always been good at it. I always thought he was one of those guys that doesn't get the respect that he deserves in the league. But I always thought he was easily a top 15 goalie, pretty
right.
much year in and year out. So,
Yeah, for sure.
and then last bit of goalie news: Ben Bishop for the Stars is day to day with the sore back. It's looking like it's not going to be anything long term for him, but um, the Stars obviously want Bishop and net over Letton as much as possible. So
Yeah.
Stars are starting to make a push. They've been playing pretty good hockey lately. They're getting back into the talk in the Central. I think they are, and yeah, they're in the first wild card spot right now. So they don't want to give up any ground to the Central. It's a tough division to be in right now. So they want Bishop back as soon as possible for sure.
Absolutely.
And then let's talk about a couple little roster moves here that have happened since the last time we had an episode. Biggest one, I'm sure you saw this trade. Anaheim sends Sammy Vatanen and a conditional 2019 third round pick to Jersey for Adam Henrique, Blandisi, and a 2018 third round pick.
Huh. Wow.
Have you heard about that one? That happened about
Yeah, I did.
6, 7 days ago, somewhere in that range.
I don't know about that one. What do you think about that?
Uh, I can tell you right now, it's a hockey trade of teams that have two different needs and two different excesses, and they kind of works out for both teams. Jersey is a team that's looking for help on the blue line. Their forward depth is pretty solid right now. I mean, they've got Hall, they've got Hischier, they got Bratt, they've got um, Johansson, Zajac still. I'm missing people, I know, but they've got a pretty good solid lineup there up in forward. Palmieri, but he's out right now, but whenever he plays, obviously. Um, so Henrique was kind of getting pushed down the lineup a little bit for him. They needed some help with scoring on the blue line. Butcher's been really great for them, but he's a rookie, kind of unknown, and we don't know if he can keep that up. So they make the move there. On Anaheim's side of it, if Anaheim was fully healthy, I wouldn't understand the trade, but Anaheim is down Getzlaff, Kessler, and Raquel right now, which is their top
Oh,
three centers.
I didn't know that. Wow, they're
Yeah,
all hurt?
yeah, they're all hurt.
Damn.
Um, the closest one to coming back, I think, is Getzlaff, but even that's still a couple weeks. Kessler's hasn't played a game yet this season, and Raquel was their leading scorer, and he went down. So they were desperate for some centers. I mean, they had to do something if they wanted to keep trying to make a splash in the Pacific. I know they are struggling right now. They are currently sitting at fourth worst record in the West right now. So um, I mean, they got to get something going. They couldn't afford to wait for those guys to get healthy. So this is a move for them trying to keep in the playoff hunt while they're waiting for guys to get back. Even when they get back, you got to think they'll probably slot Raquel into a wing on the first two lines and make Henry their third C, which obviously is not a bad thing to have.
Yeah, that makes sense with that information. At a first glance, I was like not thinking that was a very great trade for the Ducks because I mean, Henrique's a solid player, but he's not tearing up, or anything.
No,
But
no, no.
it makes sense
Uh,
if they're are down all those centers though. So
yeah, for sure. Blandisi is a decent prospect. He's not. He's probably gonna be maybe a decent bottom six guy down the line. And plus, they get the third round pick out of it, and the third round they're sending back is conditional, and it's also 2019. So the
yeah,
condition is if they sign Henrique before they make the third round pick that New Jersey sent them, then they don't have to, or they have to 2019 third round over. If they end up not re-signing Henrique, then they get to keep that third round pick. So
which
just
they
depends on what
and
happens out
they
with that.
probably won't re-sign him, so that
More
makes
than
sense.
likely. More than
Yeah.
likely. I mean,
Okay.
they got some guys down that are probably gonna come up next year over Enrique anyway. So,
Yeah.
um, some other roster moves. This is a smaller trade, but it's one that kind of close to home for us. Detroit trades Scott Wilson to Buffalo for a fifth round pick in 2019. Obviously, Scott Wilson was with the Pens at the beginning of this year. He got moved over in the Shahan deal that brought Shahan to Pittsburgh. So his time in Detroit was short-lived, to say the least.
Yeah.
To go along with this trade, Buffalo has also waived Matt Molson to send him down to the AHL. He is already
Youch.
cleared. Molson, obviously, he's making like $4 million a year. I think no one's going to touch that for a guy that's playing fourth line minutes. Um, there wasn't really any question about that. So
Yeah. He was good for a little while there, but
yeah, he's getting old. I mean, he's on the wrong side of 30 for sure.
okay.
Now I think he's 34, maybe 35 even,
Hmm.
somewhere in there. This is probably a move of Buffalo trying to just get faster all the way around their lineup. Wilson I always thought he was a decent player. He's fast. He's got a little bit of a scoring touch. I mean, he's never going to be a top six guy, but I think he'll slot in and be decent there in that spot. So.
The show. I got anything else in hockey land?
You can just go over where the standings are right now. That's about it. The Atlantic top three teams: Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Montreal. Metro, it's New Jersey, Columbus, and New York, and wildcard positions in the East. Currently belong to Washington and Pittsburgh. It's a tight race still. I don't think there's any question 5 Metro teams probably make the playoffs this year. The Metro is
Probably.
ridiculous. Um,
Yeah.
You've got within 4 points of each other. New Jersey's in first, then New York's in sixth in the Metro, and there's a 4 point spread there. So
As usual.
mm, Over in the West, Nashville is currently sitting at the top of the Central, and then they're followed by Winnipeg and St. Louis, who have kind of fallen off, but they're still only 1 point behind Nashville, so it's still a close race there. The Pacific, the Kings are back in first, the Knights are in second, and then Vancouver is in third. And the wild card in the West is Dallas and San Jose right now. Chicago is on the outside looking in, 1 point behind San Jose. Um, if Chicago misses the playoffs this year, that's pretty huge. I think their years of playing fast and loose with the cap are starting to finally come back and bite them. They've lost a lot of pieces from their cup runs, 3 years ago. So
Yeah, well, yeah, it's gotta happen sooner or later.
yeah, but that's about it on the land of hockey. So we can move on from there.
All right, well, let's end it with football americano. Um,
Absolutely, as they say in the Latin world.
that is what they say, I think. So we all know of the controversial game that took place Monday night, but we'll end with that. Prior to that, what's just a general overview of the league right now?
All right, so we'll save that for last. Let's talk about a little bit of managerial stuff right now. I'm sure you saw Roger Goodell's contract finally got extended.
No,
The
thank God.
commissioner. Yeah. Well, from the story was that Jerry Jones was kind of holding it up. Obviously because of the whole Zeke incident. He's not too happy
Oh,
with
he's
Goodell.
he's a d-bag.
Yeah, but I guess
Well,
the
they're all
rest of the
d-bags,
owners
but
finally
whatever.
put enough the rest of the owners finally put enough pressure on Jones to get the contract done. So Goodell is extended. He's going to be the commissioner for the foreseeable future. That's not going to change. Um, Over in New York, we have some pretty big change-ups for the Giants. They have fired their general manager, and they also fired their coach Ben McAdoo after starting
Yeah,
out 2-11, I believe, 2-10, 2-10.
not
So
super surprised. And actually, speaking of the Giants, this is somewhat old news. I mean, slightly. Did they bench Eli too?
they did bench Eli last game. They
Yeah.
benched Eli for Geno Smith. They lost that game, and they're going back to Eli this week, which means Eli's starting streak was ruined for pretty much nothing. I think they should have fired McAdoo before that happened, and Eli should never been benched because Eli's not the problem. Eli is not the problem in New York. They have a lot of problems in their roster, but the quarterback is not one of them. So
Yeah, that that was dumb. I didn't really understand that, but you know.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that Eli's having the best year he's ever had, but he's not. He's not what's going on there. There's other things that they need to improve on. I guess I didn't really have much else besides the Pittsburgh game, but let's talk about what's going on in the playoffs. Two teams have locked playoff berths. The Eagles and the Patriots are both 10-2. They are for sure going to be in the playoffs this year. They could lose out and still make it. They could lose out and still win their divisions, retrospectively, I believe, due to tiebreakers now. So there's no chance they're missing it. There's also teams that are very likely right now. The Steelers at 10-2 have like a 99.7% chance, I think, to make it. Um, I don't think there's really any way they miss at this point. The Vikings 10-2, they're almost a lock as well, and the Saints at 9-3 are also almost a lock in the NFC South there. Um, Other teams that are looking right now, the AFC South is going to be interesting with Tennessee and Jacksonville both 8-4. Um, we'll see who gets in from that one as the divisional team. The team that doesn't get in from the divisional team, assuming they keep playing the way they've been playing, is probably going to make a wild card spot. So um, Baltimore is looking like they're going to take the second wild card spot with 7-5 in the AFC North. They're not going to beat out Pittsburgh more than likely, barring any crazy changes in the way those two teams have been playing. But they are in a fairly decent lock for the next wild card. And then who knows what's going to happen in the AFC West if anybody wants to win that division. There's three teams tied at 6-6, so
Jeez.
and then the Broncos are 3-9. It could come down to the last week with that one. I have no idea who's going to win out of that between the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Raiders. One of them will get in. The rest of them are going to be out. So
Yeah, that's nuts.
looking at the yeah, it's crazy. Looking at the NFC side, the Eagles are pretty much they are a lock now. Minnesota's probably a lock as well. There's some crazy things that could happen if they miss it, but they're like a 98% chance making it. So, um, The Rams are currently sitting at 9-3, leading the NFC West. Seattle's behind them at 8-4 in the first wildcard spot. And then the Saints are winning the NFC South at 9-3. Carolina is behind them in the second wildcard spot at 8-4. And then Atlanta's knocking on the door with a 7-5 record. So um, it'll be interesting to see what happens. That's going to be the biggest division to watch in the last couple weeks here. We've only got 4 weeks left of football. The biggest race that's going to come down to is the NFC South between New Orleans, Carolina, and Atlanta. See who ends up taking the two spots out of that. They're going to make the playoffs more than likely. So
Yeah. Well, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Pretty ugly game in prime time on Monday night.
yeah, that's one way to say it.
Yeah. So I live in Pittsburgh, obviously. We've made it clear at this point that we're huge Penguins fans. I grew up a Steelers fan. I've kind of fallen out of the NFL. I mean, I still like the Steelers, and I generally want them to do well, but I'm definitely not as invested as like as in years prior. A lot of that's just because I just can't stand the NFL itself, but that's just me personally. So, but I say that because I don't want to seem like I just think that they can do no wrong or anything like that. Because there were things that happened on both ends that night. I do think Cincinnati, per usual, was probably more at fault for a lot of things because that's kind of their MO. But so I mean, okay. First off, I mean, obviously the scariest part was what happened to Ryan Shazier.
Yeah, let's talk about Shazier first.
That was brutal, man.
That was not good looking.
Yeah, I looked bad.
Honestly, when he went to make the tackle, I didn't see anything in terms of what he did that looked that scary. The hit itself, you know what I mean? But he led with his helmet and went right into the guy's thigh, and it looks like it jarred something down all the way in his back because he immediately grabbed for his lower back and then started trying to move his arms, which he could move, and his legs, which he could not, which was the scary part. However, the good news is later that night they reported that he was regaining movement in his legs slowly, and he was actually returned to Pittsburgh from Cincinnati today. So they wouldn't have moved him if it was.
Well, wait, was he returned? Because last thing that I read is actually that he was staying in Cincy.
No, I just read that right before we started recording.
Oh, okay, good.
Has returned to Pittsburgh, so
that's good. I'm sure it won't be anything obviously life altering. I mean, hopefully he can still play football, but I'm sure that remains to be seen. But
I definitely don't think that's the first thing they're worrying about right now.
Yeah.
Down the line, obviously they'll look at that. Right now, it's just, is he going to regain full use of everything? It's looking like it's not going to be spinal cord related. I think he has an injury that caused swelling that pushed the spinal cord, which caused the loss of movement in the legs. So if that's the case, when the swelling goes down, the movement returns, and if that means it's probably not going to be life altering in any way. So
that's good.
It looked like he avoided the worst possible scenario, but it did look ugly. It looked really ugly coming out of that game.
Yeah.
It was not fun to watch.
It was just a hard hitting game. I mean, I don't think I've seen a game that hard hitting probably since one of the last times Pittsburgh met the Ravens a couple years back. I remember watching a night game, and it was very similar. Just they're just guys dropping like flies left and right. Like everybody was just getting hurt. It was just crazy to see that.
Kind of similar to the Cincy Pittsburgh playoff game not too long ago as well.
Well, yeah. What I was going to say is that's kind of where all this began. I mean, their teams obviously they've never really liked each other, but it definitely seems that within the past couple of years, it's really gotten fueled. A lot of that's obviously because of Vontae's Perfect.
Perfect is the center of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Perfect and Brown are the two, basically the two that are feuding that, or putting fire in that feud.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think Brown's done anything that's caused it, other than Brown has a tendency to run his mouth. He does.
Well, he wants the spotlight too. So yeah, I mean, whatever. But
But
Well,
let's talk about obviously the things that happened in that game. Besides the Shazier injury, I'll preface this with saying I am a Penguins fan. I've made that clear. I don't think anyone wants to question that. I am actually not a Steelers fan. I actually kind of don't even like the Steelers. I don't dislike them, but I don't have a like for them. I'm completely indifferent, and I'm completely indifferent in this matchup. So I'm coming at this from a completely third party, have no investment in either team. I'm a Colts fan, so I'm having them this whole year. I don't care about either of these two teams.
right.
But let's talk about Smith-Schuster first. Obviously, the big thing that happened there on a catch for a route, Smith-Schuster laid out Vontaze Burfict with a pretty nasty block. It was a big block. Was it illegal? I don't know. It was iffy at best if it was illegal. Because it looked to me like the initial contact was shoulder to shoulder, and on the follow through, their helmets collided. If that's the case, he's not leading with his helmet. It is not an illegal hit.
Well, what a lot of people are saying about that hit is that it was illegal, but it wasn't dirty, and that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, I don't think that he planned to make head-to-head contact with him and knock him out. I mean, obviously he was, you know, he wanted to ring him a little bit.
Yeah,
But
no,
I
yeah.
don't think it, I don't think there was any ill intent there. I just think that he caught him in a bad spot. Um,
Now, does Smith-Schuster lay that block if that's not perfect? Probably not. Probably not.
I don't, honestly, he might though, man, because, like,
That heavy?
maybe, but what I can't say, what I do know about Smith Schuster is that one big reason he's become a bit of a fan favorite here is because of the way he blocks. A lot of people, very, very Heinz Ward esque.
Yeah.
So I think either way, he probably does throw that block, especially
Okay.
because it was it was very close to the ball carrier. So I don't really think like it was a matter of
It
I'm
was
just
not
gonna
the play by any means. It wasn't
yeah
the play. You're right about that.
yeah
Now, here's the part where that got it to be controversial, and what I think eventually led to his suspension. To be honest with you, is the fact that he stood over Perfect after the hit and
sure
was
sure
obviously talking down. That is not good optics, especially because Perfect didn't get back up after the hit and was injured.
yeah
That's
that's
obviously not not good optics.
yeah you don't want to see that. I mean I don't entirely blame him for doing it because it was perfect. I get why he would do that, but it's you know, in those types of situations, you're usually way better off just kind of turning the other cheek. But here's my problem with that though, is then if that's the logic, then it's kind of implying that you're suspending a guy for taunting. And I mean, I wasn't aware you could even get suspended for that. I know you can get flagged for it,
Yeah.
but
Let's talk about the controversy here. The
yeah,
first thing we need to mention is if we're gonna talk about the controversy and why this whole thing is controversial, let's talk about the Gronk incident because I think it has a lot to do with what's going on with this.
yeah, it's a good point.
Gronk was suspended for one game for basically dropping an elbow with WWE style on a guy that's out of bounds on the ground, already been touched. Well after the play. Well after the play. It was so bad and such an egregious late hit. It wasn't that vicious in terms of that it was going to hurt the guy, but it's a 250-pound guy or however Gronk weighs dropping an elbow on you. I mean, it's going to feel good. Um, it was bad enough that um, Belichick himself went over to the locker room of the team they were playing. I think it was the Bills afterwards and apologized for the hit. So if Belichick apologizing for one of his own players' hits, it's pretty egregious. Um,
Yeah,
the NFL gives him one game for that. The problem that's coming in is Smith-Schuster also is getting one game for his block. So basically what they're saying is Gronk's egregious late hit elbow drop that he did is as bad as Smith-Schuster dropping a questionable, we'll call it questionable at best. It could have been illegal, it could have been dirty, but it was close. It was borderline block on a guy during a football play.
yeah. That's the thing is that like Smith-Schuster, what he did, and then who's the guy that hit AB head to head in the end zone?
That was George Iloka. That was my next point, is that he was originally suspended for a game. Both Smith-Schuster and Iloka appealed their suspensions. Iloka's was actually dropped to a fine. He is no longer suspended. Smith-Schuster's was kept at 1 game. So, and judging from the language of the letter that was sent in by the player safety, the fact that he taunted after the hit has a lot to do with the fact that he's not getting a fine. He's getting a suspension instead.
Now, here's the thing. You can argue those two hits. You can argue if they were dirty, if they were illegal, blah blah blah. But at least they were football plays.
Yes.
And whereas with Gronk, wasn't close. I mean, it was after the play. It was not even anywhere near a football play. So, how do you only suspend him for the same amount of time as a guy who pretty much just got suspended for taunting? And then the other guy who hit AB head to head. I mean, again, it's like at least he was trying to tackle AB and make him drop the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It just makes zero sense at all.
No, it's a mess, and the league is not doing himself any favor with it. Here's what my opinion would be of it. If I were in the player safety department with the NFL, if I'm going to give Smith-Schuster a game, if I want to send that message of, hey, you can't drop a guy like that and then taunt him after, I am definitely giving Gronk more than 1 game for that hit.
Oh yeah.
If that's the standard they're setting, Gronk needs at least 2, if not more than that hit for that hit.
Yes.
That is completely egregious. Gronk's apologized. He's said all the right things, but Gronk. This isn't the first time Gronk's thrown a late hit or done something that's questionable either. So it's not like he doesn't have some history behind it. I don't know if he's been suspended before. I don't think he has, but he's got the history. So if they're wanting to give Smith-Schuster 1 game for what they're doing, if they want to send that message, then in my opinion, Gronk needs at least 2 games for that hit, because you can't send a message that these are equal suspensions, that these are equal violations. You just can't. That's not what you need to be sending there. Ideally, I think what they should have done was drop Smith-Schuster to a fine and give him a very heavy warning of, hey, you can't do that kind of crap. The hit itself is bad enough to sit there and taunt the guy after while he's hurt, which Smith-Schuster may not have known he was hurt at the time, but still, you can't do it. Send the message, send the fine, and give Gronk the 1 game suspension if they want to do that. But there's no way the league should have made those 2 equal suspensions. There's just it can't happen.
Yeah.
And it's just another PR nightmare for the league because it's already all over the news. People are already debating it. There's obviously people bring the aspect of Gronk plays for New England, and if he didn't play for New England, he would have got a lot bigger of a suspension. And Smith-Schuster, if he laid that hit for New England, he wouldn't have gotten any.
It's possible.
Out there. It may or may not have validity. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to drop my impartiality because I am not a New England fan. I can't stand New England. But I'm not going to get into any of that, whether they have favoritism for the league or not. That stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is where I'm going to sound like a Steelers fan, even though I'm not all that invested anymore. If it's me, I think Smith-Schuster should have gotten flagged and fined, and that's it. I mean, obviously he cleaned his clock, but it was a block. I mean, it was just a block.
Yeah.
The guy who hit AB, that's a little different because AB was was up in the air, a defenseless player, like completely defenseless player. So, with that being said, I would have suspended him for 1 game. And then Gronk, I would say at least 3 games, maybe even more than that.
I hear you with that.
Yeah.
The Iloka, I don't have that much problem with them dropping the suspension to a fine for Iloka if they would have done the same thing for Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
I think that Iloka and Smith-Schuster should have gotten the same punishment.
Yeah, I agree.
Basically, is what I come to.
Well,
If they're going to give Smith-Schuster the game, they should have given a look at the game. If they're going to
yeah.
give Smith-Schuster fine, they should have given a look at the fine.
Yeah, I could have lived with that, but it seems strange that, they ended up differently, but whatever, But
Yeah, and you're right. It does seem like the league is dropping a suspension for taunting. That's never been done before, but I don't think we've ever seen, at least not that often, guys taunting on a play that ended up with an injury like that. So
yeah,
it's not good optics. I'll give him that. I don't think Smith-Schuster meant to drop a hit that was going to be that vicious and hurt Perfect. I don't have that much sympathy for Perfect because, in my opinion, Perfect is clearly, without a doubt, the dirtiest player in the league.
maybe even ever.
It's up there. I mean, the league used to be a lot dirtier back in the day. So
Yeah.
can you compare with some of those guys during the Blitz Bulls? I don't know. But at least as of now, he's clear and beyond the dirtiest player in the league. It's not even really a close second. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have much sympathy for him. I don't like that he hurt, but I don't have much sympathy in the fact that he got a little. He had his mouth ran to him when he blocked. I think that's because he's known for doing the same thing back. So
Yeah, exactly. I don't, I don't want to see the guy get hurt, and I'm pretty sure he's okay, which is good, but he's had that coming for a long time, so.
yeah.
Well, on that note,
Right.
we'll wrap this up. Thanks again, as always, for the analysis, man.
As always.
If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe, comment. If you didn't, comment and tell us why. We appreciate all feedback. Also, be sure to check out our other videos. We do a weekly podcast about video games. So, on that note, Todd, we'll do it again next week, and I'll talk to you then, man.
Sounds good. Have a good week, man.
Later, you too.